I'm delighted to start this discussion because of the fact that I'm a geologist and geology controls everything. And in geology, we have a saying that says, the only constant on Earth is change, meaning that change is always happening on Earth. So that we need to know where does it occur, the cause of every event, the duration of each event, the effects of every event, and how do we start with mitigation. These events are earthquakes, landslides, sea level rise, global warming, whatever it is that is changing, we need to know. And we need to know not only in a small part of the country, African continent in part, but we really need to know its effects on the African continent, because whatever happens in one part of it affects whatever happens in the rest of it. And therefore, I say that we need a satellite for Africa, all of it, to look at all of the continent, to see what is happening everywhere, and to have African scientists look at that at all times and interpret what the satellite images show, so that all the African countries can benefit and groups of countries can do whatever is necessary to ameliorate the problems. I do not know whether my slides have made it or not. If they made it, I would like to show the first slide now, if available. Next, yeah. Next. The size of Africa. Africa is larger than all of China, the US, and all of Europe put together. Like if you put all Europe together and the USA together and China together, Africa is still larger. So it is a vast area. We cannot really consider one small part and forget the rest of it. The resources in Africa are unreal. The amount is vast. Fertile soil covers 60% of the land of Africa, meaning that fertile soil is larger than all of China, for instance. So that fertile soil, which can produce food, can feed the whole world. Africa contains 90% of the Earth's natural resources, meaning that Africa can teach and reach the whole world or feed the whole world. Yet, we know some places in Africa are malnutrition, and some places in Africa do not find enough food. And the reason is that we're divided into tiny little countries, no cooperation, no contact. And I really think if we get together and join forces and have one imaging satellite to serve the whole continent, and all of the data that comes from it is distributed all of the countries, and everyone in all of Africa would know what it is. Next. Then we'd be able to do something, because the population in Africa is 1.3 billion. We're very close to China. So meaning that if we had our population work as hard as the Chinese people do, we could be as good as, if not better than, all of China. This is something, think about that our population is close to that of China. If we use our population as well as China uses its population, we could be better than China. Next. So when we look at China from space, we see Africa from space, we see that this whole continent, and actually the continent of all of it has been moving northward very slowly. So for instance, places like Egypt and North Africa have been getting away from the equatorial belt, meaning away from rain. That's why we have these desert belts. So it has been moving, the whole continent is moving northward, and it is actually pushing against Europe. And that's why the Alps mountains were formed, because as Africa comes like this on the right, then the land buckles like this. The Alps mountain was formed like that because Africa was pushing northward. So we know that Africa is moving as a whole continent. Next. And it has affected all kinds of things. The first effect is the fact that North Africa has been going away from the equator, away from rain, and that's why we have this desert, a vast desert belt. And actually, the land west of the Nile has a contour around it, this large contour in the middle of this, in the center of the picture. It says 200. It actually means that received solar radiation on any part of that zone is capable of evaporating 200 times the amount of rainfall. And if the rainfall was 100% more than what it is, it would evaporate instantly. If 200 times more than 200 times the rainfall that happens, it will evaporate. It is a vastly dry area. The driest place and the rest of the world is very much different than that. The driest place in North America, which they call Death Valley in California because it's so dry and dreadful, the dryness rate there is 7. And west of the Nile, the dryness is 200, meaning the high is dry than any other dry, which means that the sun is there at all times, which means if we do not use solar energy, we would be very stupid because we have the largest amount of solar energy than anywhere else in the world. So that we're not using these kinds of things. And we could provide all of Africa with electric power using solar energy if we place solar collectors in throughout the Western Desert, Egypt, and Eastern Libya in this zone that says 200, meaning that there are resources that we can utilize, and we're not doing that. Next. One of the potential uses of resources is my idea of connect the country together by what I call the development corridor that starts from the Mediterranean Sea at Al Alamein, going parallel to the Delta and then parallel to the Nile River all the way through to Sudan. But I do not think that it should stop there. Next. That is actually a development corridor that should be everywhere. Why? Because I know for certain that India, since it was ruled by Jawaharlal Nehru, has developed only because of the development corridors that it built. It built a development corridor from the northern point all the way to the south, north-south line corridor, and one east-west corridor from the farthest point east to the farthest point west, in addition to 2 corridors along the east coast and the west coast, meaning India had developed 4 development corridors to connect the country together, to make certain that people that are in the space agency in India and the south can get connected with everywhere in India. And that is the way to do things. Next. So that's why my development corridor was not really designed for Egypt only, but it should go straight down through South Sudan and Uganda and Tanzania and Zambia, to Rhodesia, to Botswana, all the way to South Africa. So there should be a line connecting Alexandria or west of Alexandria all the way to Cape Town. And from there on, east-west connectors can connect the rest of Africa together, meaning that any product coming from any country in Africa can reach the Mediterranean Sea and go to Europe in no time at all. So this, we need something to connect, we need something to link, we need something to figure out what is happening. And to figure out what's happening, we need a satellite to go around the whole Earth, but dedicated to take pictures of the African continent. We have many specialists in the African continent of the remote sensing and all kinds of space images and map making and all of that, but we're not using them. And the one in country is not helping the other one. But if we have a satellite that is paid for and managed and controlled by all African nations, then we can utilize all of its material throughout the continent for the betterment of its people, to develop economic ideas, to make connections between them, to make routes for buying and selling products, to make routes for buying and selling things from Europe, and that kind of thing would link the whole continent and make the African continent rise above and beyond any other place in the whole world, because as we said, we have 90% of the resources of the world, and it is in one block of land, the continent Africa, the continent of Africa. Therefore, we really can develop, and we really can be ahead and number 1 place in the world if we unite, if we figure out what is happening in our land, where can we produce, how can we cooperate, where do events that affect us occur, whether it's earthquakes, landslides, or sea level changes, or global warming, or whatever it is, and we continue to monitor the changes and continue to help each other to fix the changes and continue to help each other collect the food that we produce and sell it and buy things from abroad to fix people or groups in Africa, I think the African continent can be a leader in the world.